All right, welcome everybody on this fine sunny Monday morning. I am by myself because my buddy Steve, he's on vacation today. So, Steve, wherever you are, have a margarita on us and enjoy your time off. But today we have a very, very special guest. And like Steve liked to pull his guest list out of the sun visor, I'm going to do the same. And our guest for today is Election Buddy Dave. So, Dave, tell us a little bit about ElectionBuddy. What is this all about? And give us the scoop.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, fellow David. Very excited to be here. It's been a great week, long week, and lots of travels. But as background, I'm a CPA by trade. I've been working with elections for well over 10 years now. We've done about 230,000 votes, majority of them in the HOA, Homeowners Association segment, all the way from as far south in Arizona, where we kind of got our start, as far north up in Canada. And there are community associations all around the world. So we've done a bunch of them. What ElectionBuddy does is we're a simple to set up, high integrity cloud-based voting platform that helps HOA, community association managers, members of HOAs, and the boards manage their board elections, maybe bylaw amendments, maybe fee approvals. And as one of the old sayings that we've heard in the vote marketplace, that if you want to get everybody out to ensure that you achieve your quorum, just increase the rates and you'll get a return on your vote.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you're not in your car, and this is Community Association car chat. So what's happened?
Well, interestingly enough, I was headed back from the lake last week and driving along home. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. And I crossed a river and my motor blew. So fortunate it was under warranty, but I actually pick it up again today, David. Otherwise I would be in my car kind of.
Well, that's not a fun place to be. So going back to what we were talking about, ElectionBuddy, how did you get started in that segment? Because it's pretty specific for a company. Did you notice like a void in the market, or how did it all start?
Yeah, so myself and my technical co-founder, we looked at it, and what we wanted to do was put something out on the internet at the time that was very reasonably priced. And if we built a good product, we felt that people would come and look for that product, and we'd get growth via word of mouth and carry through. So we did that. And, we saw the void. Things were very high priced, or there wasn't enough interaction with HOAs and CAMs and homeowners. And we thought that there was a better way to do it. And it turns out that we're right. Certainly from whether you want to do it yourself or you want to have our ElectionBuddy experts run your vote for you, we can handle it in both ways. And we get a lot of kudos from our CAMs and some of the association partners that we deal with. And it's been a really great journey.
All right. Now, talking about the journey, it's a journey to run these communities, and the boards, they're not perfect. They're normal people trying to volunteer. So what's the maybe the two biggest challenge that you see communities facing when it comes to elections?
Yeah, for sure. Right. I mean, voter apathy is always a big deal, but you're dealing with somebody's home and their property. So the choices that are made during that vote are super important. So how do we create something so that if we're in an off year and where the HOA isn't required to increase its price, how do we get everybody out and voting so that we can pass the bylaw amendments, so that we can elect our board? That's number one. And how do we help folks get to make sure that their quorum is achieved? Number one. Number two is when you're going through and doing those votes, depending on your property, you have to make sure that you read and understand those bylaws, because your elections can be overturned, right? If you don't follow the legislation and the votes within your state, you can have those community members challenge that vote, and it becomes very expensive. There's even insurance today out there for voter challenges within the HOA segment that I'm sure, David, that you guys offer. So for us, we want to make sure that the vote goes smooth. We want to make sure that the vote goes easy for members. And we want to make sure that we get to the right result.
Election recount and recall, I'm sure that you've seen that plenty, but it's messy at the national level, and it's messy in the HOAs too. So now, what's the typical election season? Is there one when it comes to HOAs?
From an HOA perspective, our busy time is from about the 15th of September to the 15th of November. That's a really busy time. We have a secondary busy time kind of in the months of April and May. June, July, and August, and the December, January months are not as busy for those. But that's typically because people are doing their votes around their annual meeting. And people typically don't hold their annual meetings at Christmas or in the summer. So we have to follow the elections, follow suit.
So how do you plan and organize? What's the strategy to really be ready for an election? Like, I would not know where to start.
Oh, that's a great point. I mean, we always say start by reading your state legislation, start by reviewing your bylaws.
Yeah, good point.
If you do that as a solid foundation, you can always run your votes. But pretty biased, I think we offer some of the best support in the business. But with that, whether you outsource that or talk to your community association manager, if you're a board, or talk to somebody like us, we're here to help, right? So we want to make sure that your vote goes well. And there's many times people just talk to our support team and talk to our services team, talk to our success team, and just ask them questions about the vote. We have lots of guides online as well that can take you from that beginning to the end. And we don't charge anything for those guys because ultimately we're here to help.
Could you walk us through two scenarios? Like, let's say I'm in my community and I'm on the board and I'm looking through the process. We've been doing it on our own. What does it look like in my association if we were to manage our elections on our own versus managing it with a service provider such as ElectionBuddy?
Well, there's really two aspects to it. There's a lot of things that the ElectionBuddy voting platform takes care and takes away. It takes care of the counting. It takes care of the sending out notice. It takes care of the tallying the results and declaring the winners. And it makes sure that it reminds voters to get voting out. The reason why we built that into the application is because if you compare it to the board member or that external scrutineer kind of doing themselves with manual process, can be a lot of work, especially if your association's over 100, if you have more than 100 homes in your voter, it takes time to put all that together. And you can also create confusion for your voters because if you send a reminder to voters that have already voted, they're like, wow, geez, did I vote already? And that just means more questions for you as that board member. Ultimately, what we're trying to do at ElectionBuddy is streamline that entire process from that perspective to really make it simple so that you give us your voter list. You work with our team to set up the vote, to make sure that vote is the way that reflects your bylaws, but also will help you reflect the state legislation. We can even coordinate with your legal team or your legal counsel to do some of that because the bylaws in Florida and the statutes in Florida are very different from Arizona, very different from Chicago, and very different from California. And there are places that won't support electronic votes as well, like California today, for certain kinds of elections.
Yeah, and you mentioned something in the previous answer that I thought was fascinating. You're breaking down the good news to the winner, but you also break down the bad news to the ones that didn't win. So how does that go? Do you ever have somebody challenging you? Tell us a little bit about that.
100%, right? When you're dealing with the biggest asset that you probably own, which is your home, you do get emotional, especially if you've got tough neighbors or a situation where you need to feel that you're on the board. The majority of the challenges are from disgruntled candidates. And we're pretty sensitive to that. We want to make sure that there is a forum for those candidates to register their challenge and assure that the election was fair while protecting their anonymity as well. So we have a full challenge process to deal with those folks. In a lot of cases, we've seen challenges that have come through from very, very disgruntled home members, even to go all the way to and take it to the courts. Typically when there may be issues around the bylaws or following the bylaws, but that's a little bit of our job, right?
I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. Now, as we're going to wrap up the episode, I have one fun question to ask you. Out of all the 60,000 or even obviously more than that, because I was just this year, if you had to summarize the craziness of your industry to us, what's that story look like?
Oh, gosh. That's a tough one, fellow David. We work with some really, really nice people and some really, really great folks throughout it, whether they're in high pressure situations or different kinds of situations where they're feeling a lot of stress. And my shout out goes to all the community association managers that are out there. They are dealing on a day in, day out basis, trying to make their members' lives better. Whether it's taking care of issues in the community like maintenance issues or garbage pickup or whatever those might be, they do a lot of different jobs. And our job is to take away some of that stress from them.
So thank you very much, ElectionBuddy Dave. We enjoyed our time with you and knowing more about you. Any questions, don't hesitate to hit him up on clicking on his name, and you can send him a direct message through LinkedIn or email him. And in the meantime, thank you very much all for watching this episode of Community Association Car Chat. And we'll see you next week with another guest.